In the circumstances, Form would have had to be displaced from his command, an act which in itself could prematurely expose the plotters' motives and risk the coup's outcome. Albrecht vacillated until just before 4 p.m., the moment when Stauffenberg alighted at Rangsdorf Airport and his adjutant phoned to assure the Bendlerblock plotters that Hitler was definitely dead. Even now, just as Albrecht had feared, Form refused to go along with the plotters. Instead, he phoned the chief of OKW, Generalfeldmarschall Keitel, and received the directly contradictory information that Hitler was alive, having suffered only minor injuries. Stauffenberg now returned to Bendlerblock, stoutly maintained that Keitel was lying. Form was unmoved. At this point, Albrecht and his accomplices acted. Form was locked away and Valkyrie finally activated. It was shortly after 4:30 p.m. By now, Himmler, still at the Wolfschanze, had finally come to grips with events. The Gestapo had for some time been aware of the German resistance movement and its inchoate plotting, but not of Stauffenberg's role. Such was Himmler's admiration for Stauffenberg that he had personally recommended his services to Hitler. Only late in the afternoon did it become apparent that Stauffenberg must be the perpetrator of the assassination attempt, too late to have him arrested on touchdown at Rangsdorf. The ineptitude of the supposedly all-seeing, all-powerful SS in protecting the Nazi state from its enemies was remarkable. Although Heinrich Müller, the Gestapo chief, had long been anticipating just such a situation, and Kaltenbrunner could, by now, be in no doubt that something was going on at Bendlerstrasse, RSHA HQ remained curiously inert for many hours. No Waffen-SS units, such as the Leibstandarte Division, companies stationed at Lichterfelder, or Skorzeny's motorized battalion, only a little further afield, were initially summoned. In fact, the only SS-controlled units to be seen on the streets of Berlin as Valkyrie picked up momentum were those of the Kripo, and that was because their commander, Arthur Neber, was up to his neck in the plot. It was at this time that the fate of Germany came to rest in the hands of one man. Not Otto Skorzeny, whatever he might have subsequently tried to claim, but Wehrmacht Major Otto Ernst Rehmer, the highly decorated, hard-bitten veteran commander of the elite Wachtbataillon Großdeutschland Guard Battalion, the only fully mobilized military force in Berlin. Rehmer was ordered by the Berlin military commandant, Generalleutnant Paul von Haase, a plotter, to seal off radio stations and move on buildings in the government quarters of the city. His most important assignment was to seize the propaganda ministry and its key occupant, Joseph Goebbels. A dedicated Nazi, Rehmer became suspicious of his orders almost the moment he received them, but began implementing them anyway. Eventually, he became convinced he was being set up and made a personal visit to Goebbels at about 7 p.m. When he entered with his pistol ready, prepared to arrest him, Rehmer was eagerly greeted by Goebbels, who asked for a full briefing on the situation and informed him that Hitler was still alive. "The assassination failed. You've been tricked." Rehmer spoke to Hitler on the telephone and involuntarily snapped to attention at the sound of the Führer's voice. He was promoted on the spot to colonel and invested with plenary powers to bring the revolt to an end. The military cordon surrounding the government quarter was immediately dismantled, and Rehmer set about blocking access to and from the Bendlerblock. By now, the radio was broadcasting the news of Hitler's survival. While all this was going on, Skorzeny was on a tour of inspection of the government quarter. Having dismissed Schellenberg's fears as hysteria and the putative plot as a comic opera revolt, he had left Völkersam at Beckerstrasse to await the arrival of his motorized company and set off with Ohrstaffel to discover what was going on. He had no orders at this stage beyond securing the Amtssechs headquarters building. The fact-finding mission was his own initiative. What he encountered was more disturbing than he had earlier imagined. A senior panzer officer of his acquaintance, Generalmajor Ernst Bollbrinker, had summoned a number of tanks from the Wünsdorf Panzerschule, 55 kilometers outside Berlin, and deployed them around the Fährberliner Square area. Bollbrinker was confused by the orders emanating from Bendlerblock. The impression he had gained, no doubt deliberately encouraged by the plotters, was that the Waffen-SS was behind the putsch. When Skorzeny encountered him, Bollbrinker was about to send out an armed patrol to the Lichterfelder barracks. The high probability of an armed clash, and even civil war as the Waffen-SS units stationed there responded to unprovoked aggression, loomed large in Skorzeny's mind. Accompanied by two of Bollbrinker's officers, Skorzeny then raced by